Turn it over to Dave Barry.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Dave Barry, class of 1969. I really got my start as a humor writer here. It was the Haverford College News. The editor was a guy named Dennis Stern, who was a classmate of mine, still a friend of mine, who ended up at the New York Times. My roommate up there, Bob Stern, we had an entertaining couple of years here. You know, is Dennis Stern here? The other Stern, there, Dennis. Dennis was the editor of whatever they called it then, the Haverford News, which later became the Haverford Bryn Mawr, or didn't it? We were bi when it wasn't cool to be bi back then, right? But anyway, Dennis Stern, who later became an editor at the New York Times, which is a famous newspaper, printed my first humor columns in the Haverford News. At first, they weren't supposed to be humor columns. He was trying to get me to write real stories, but I was turning in lies, so he just printed them as humor. And after a while, in my own way, I became, a popular cop. People, I come to the dining hall and say, "Yeah, that was funny," and so that was it. That was kind of the beginning. I only applied to one college, which was, I now realize I was stupid. It's great, everybody seems nice and smart, and it's small, and so it's the only place I applied. And I got in. Thank you. I don't know. If I hadn't gotten in, I don't know. Since I left Haverford, a bunch of things happened, but I ended up in Miami. I live in Miami now. I moved there in 1986 from the United States. And they do a poll every year where they ask people what they think of major cities. And Miami always does really poorly in this poll. The last one, 67% of the people responding said they thought of Miami as a dangerous and violent place. And when we see that, those of us who live there, that hurts. I mean, we want to track those people down and kill them. Well, this is Barclay Hall, and all the freshmen stayed there. I came back here for my 30th reunion in 1999, and my wife Michelle and I, we decided to stay in Barclay Hall. They were letting you stay on campus, so we stayed in Barclay Hall, and purely randomly, they assigned us to room 313, Barclay Hall. And that happens to be the room that I lived in my entire freshman year. This is room 313. This is where I lived for my whole freshman year with my roommate Greg Jackson. I really don't know why there's no plaque or anything. Some of my best friends are guys I met here, friends and bandmates, and people I named my kids after. I knew everybody in this college, everybody, and that's a good thing. You feel like you're home when you're here. I was an English major here, and as I credit that with my ability to write lots of words about things I know nothing about. It's because of the essence of being English majors. I was very good at it. Talk a little bit about my book. The title is You Can Date Boys When You're 40. Let's be honest with ourselves. I'm a boy. I was a boy. I've been a male all my life. We're scum, okay? We're the worst gender ever. When my daughter turned 13, they start coming around. They're like squirrels. They're on the lawn, they're on the roof, they're in the trees, they're everywhere. And what I wanted to do was get a trap, a humane trap, like a big steel box baited with something that would attract adolescent boys, like fireworks, something stupid, and put it by the front door because that is how they get in your house. And I would wait till I hear the clang, of the trap, and I'd go out there, and there'd be the boy in the trap, and I would drive him out into the Everglades and release him in a humane manner. But my wife, who is a woman, and therefore doesn't know what the boys are thinking, lets them into the house. So I'll come in there, be a boy in the house. And I'm not a violent person. I went to Haverford College. I never have owned a firearm, but I want one now. I had great professors here, especially when I figured out that what I really liked to do was read and write. And the classes tended to be maybe 8, 10 people, maybe. The professors, we knew them well, we'd go to their houses. By the time I was a senior, I was actually socializing with my professors, which seemed weird at the time, but it was kind of like getting ready to be a grown-up and having grown-up friends. When I got here in 1965, the United States was still kind of in the 50s. It was what we think of as, pre-60s. And when I left in 1969, it was the 60s. The war in Vietnam, those were the years when if you were a man and a college student, you were going to get drafted for almost sure. It was a very difficult time for all of us because we were going to a Quaker school, a pacifist school. overwhelmingly opposed to the war. I don't know about it that everybody was a full-blown Quaker, but most of us were pretty strongly opposed to the war. I knew people a lot of places who went through very difficult with their own parents, let alone their authority figures around them. Haverford was very good to us then. It's not that they said, you have to think this, you have to do that. Haverford has never been about that. It gave a lot of people the feeling that what you chose to do, if you really know why you're doing it, was okay, you have our support, we're here for you. By the time I got out of Haverford, I felt like I was a good writer, a much better writer than I came in. When I came in, I was a smart guy, with good vocabulary, spelling, good SAT scores and all that. But I wasn't a particularly thoughtful writer. I would write the most obvious thing well. When I left here, I felt like I could write anything. And I definitely felt when I started in journalism that I was a better writer than most of the people around me. And I guess I would have to credit being an English major here for that. I felt very confident in my ability to take, whatever the subject was and render it intelligently, more thoughtfully than I would have. It was just a very peaceful place. It still feels very peaceful to me. I mean, we used to do college-y thing, like throw frisbees for hours. On the surface, it appears to be the same place that I went to. And when I hear people talk about it, who went there 10 years later, 20 years later, 30, they all say the same things. And I think those fundamental things shouldn't change, I don't want it to stop being this, I don't know how it could, really.